In the ancient heartlands of Mesopotamia, a new power was stirring. Between the Tigris and the Euphrates, life and politics converged. From these waters rose a people who would bind identity to the art of war. A quiet revolution in metal, from bronze to iron, would change everything. The earth yielded a new secret: iron, stronger, more abundant. Assyrian smiths learned to smelt, hammer, and quench, turning ore into instruments of war. Swords, spearheads, helmets, iron armed entire legions. Where bronze once limited armies, iron allowed them to swell beyond precedent. To be Assyrian was to be a warrior. Boys trained for combat from youth. The state-organized economy and industry to feed a permanent war machine. Ashur, the god-king mandate, warfare became divine duty. Armed with iron and ideology, Assyria began to redraw the map of the Near East. Their genius lay not only in weapons but in engineering, siegecraft perfected. Monstrous wooden towers, taller than city walls, rolled forward, bringing archers eye to eye with defenders. Iron-tipped rams pounded gates. The rhythm itself became a weapon. Sappers tunneled beneath foundations, collapsing walls from below. Assyrian warfare was orchestral. Siege, archers, cavalry, and infantry moved in unison. They were among the first to wield cavalry as a decisive fighting force. Chariots and disciplined heavy infantry smashed enemy lines. The result, almost unbeatable legions and a march of conquest. Violence was not accidental. Terror was policy, documented in stone and clay. Flaying, pillars of skulls, burning cities, propaganda and punishment intertwined. Mass deportations shattered local loyalties and spread fear across the provinces. Yet the state also built the administrative machinery to govern what it conquered. Kings, Tiglath-Pileser, Sargon, Sennacherib, combined martial might with administrative skill. Tribute and trade funded the engine of war, and the palaces that celebrated it. Assyria stretched from Iran to the Mediterranean, a predator state of immense reach. For centuries, its shadow seemed unending, until the cracks began to form. But conquest was only half the story. Wealth and artistry blossomed beside the sword. Nineveh, Ashur, Nimrud, cities that would rival any in grandeur. Kings invested plunder into monuments, palaces that spoke of eternal order. Walls became narrative, miles of carved stone celebrating victory and power. Here, brutality and beauty sit side by side. The same hands that carved violence also carved splendor. This is the paradox of Assyria, a culture of iron and of art. And at the heart of it, knowledge preserved in clay. We turn now from the sword to the pen. Tribute and trade swelled imperial coffers. Gold, ivory, spices flowed to the capitals. Nineveh grew into the largest and most magnificent city of its age. Sennacherib's palace without a rival was a marvel. Courtyards, gardens, and vast halls. Engineers rerouted rivers. Jirwan aqueduct and canals carried water for a city of millions. This was urban planning on an imperial scale. Palace walls became a roll call of empire. Alabaster panels narrating victories and tribute. The detail is astonishing. The tension of a bow, the strain of muscle, and then the royal hunt. Ashurbanipal's lion scenes blend heroism with humane observation. Small masterpieces, ivories, cylinder seals, show the cosmopolitan tastes of the court. Metalwork, harnesses, and fine wares testified to imperial craft and exchange. First, war. Vast panels commemorate campaigns and sieges. Second, the hunt. Royal courage staged as ritual. Third, religion. Gods, divine symbols, a justification for rule. Nineveh was planned. Twin concentric walls, dozens of massive gates, networks of roads. Markets, artisans, and a multilingual populace animated the streets. Scribes recorded laws, ledgers, and literature. Bureaucracy was the empire's backbone, and soldiers kept order. Urban sophistication enforced by martial presence. Ashurbanipal, ruler, warrior, and paradoxically, a great patron of learning. He gathered a library of clay, 30,000 tablets cataloged by subject. Scribes scoured the empire, copying myths, science, ritual, and history. Thanks to this collection, we preserved Enuma Elish, Gilgamesh, and ancient science. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, omen collections. Knowledge cataloged by subject. Dictionaries bridged tongues, Sumerian to Akkadian, preserving linguistic heritage. Many tablets bear colophons, copied for the king's library. Rediscovered in the 19th century, these tablets reshaped our view of the ancient world. Assyrian art balances stylized royal propaganda with startling naturalism, especially in animals. The anatomy is observed with a sculptor's eye, movement, pain, and power frozen in stone. From grand walls to tiny ivories, the empire expressed both might and exquisite taste. For a time, this was the center of a vast civilized world. But alongside grandeur sat the grim business of empire: captives, deportation, and forced labor. Villages emptied, cultures displaced, artifacts of a cost rarely shown on palace walls. Yet, the same empire preserved knowledge that would outlive its violence. This duality, destroyer and preserver, defines Assyrian legacy. Yet even the grandest walls can hide deep cracks. Overextension, resentment, and endless campaigns strained the imperial body. Armies wore thin, treasuries drained, the center grew fragile. Now, the empire's darkest hour approaches. Beneath the veneer of order, court intrigue and rivalry festered. Succession fights, brother against brother, sapped unity after Ashurbanipal's death. Generals vied for power, civil war fragmented command. Treasuries ran thin, recruitment failed to replenish veteran ranks. Millions nursed hatred, waiting for a moment when Assyria faltered. In Babylonia, resentment boiled. The stage was set for rebellion. To the east, the Medes coalesced into a potent force under Cyaxares. Old vassals allied, the hunted became the hunters. In 614 BCE, Nabopolassar's forces took and sacked Ashur. Morale shattered. The spiritual capital sacked, Assyrian prestige crumbled. Remnants fled west and north, an army without cohesion. Outside, enemies gathered their full fury. A coordinated two-front assault struck directly at the heart. In 612 BCE, a swollen Tigris undermined mud brick defenses. Nature aided the attackers. A breach opened. Soldiers poured in and street fighting became annihilation. The palace without a rival was looted and burned. Reliefs smashed and treasures scattered. Nineveh's destruction was systematic. Massacres and mass graves tell the tale. For 2 millennia, the city's exact place faded beneath a tell of earth. In a few brief years, the empire that dominated for centuries vanished. Remnants attempted to regroup, but the spirit of Assyria was broken. Overexpansion, internal strife, and exhaustion combined with allied vengeance. Babylonians and Medes celebrated their liberation from a cruel overlord. Ancient voices, even prophets, exulted at Nineveh's fall, calling it justice. Archaeology confirms layers of burning, a violent, conclusive end. We confront a paradox. Creators of terror were also engineers, administrators, and patrons of knowledge. Their provincial system, road networks, and bureaucracy became a template for later empires. Many later powers adopted variants of Assyrian organization and military practice. Feats of engineering and monumental art stand beside ruins that bear their cost. Cities erased, cultures suppressed, millions displaced, an empire built on others' suffering. Mass graves remind us the cost of imperial order is measured in lives. The same reliefs that celebrate kings depict the agony of the conquered. Power, recorded in stone, speaks of dominance and of cruelty. 3 centuries of dominance vanished in little more than a decade. We stand between awe at their achievements and horror at their methods. What is the true legacy of empires built on conquest and overwhelming force? Are monuments worth the suffering they were paid for? Sources: archaeological records, Assyrian reliefs, and the Library of Ashurbanipal. See notes. The ghost of Assyria endures, an unsettling lesson across the ages.